My sister raised her glass at my niece's party, smiling. "Still playing house with your cats, Emma?" she chimed. Laughter skimmed the room like knives wrapped in napkins. I counted sprinkles on the cake, swallowing another comeback. Then the door opened. Afternoon light spilled across carpet. James stepped in, careful, carrying Sophie warm from nap. He kissed her forehead, scanned the stunned faces once. "Go to Mama," he said, voice gentle as Sunday. "Mommy!" Sophie squealed, arms reaching toward me without hesitation. Silence hit, heavy as church air before confession. I lifted her, her fingers finding my necklace automatically. "I'm Emma Chen, 28, project manager, former cat lady punchline. I built a quiet life that everyone called practice. Today, practice answered back and called me by name. If family ever laughed at your choices, breathe with me. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments. And please hit like and subscribe before we continue. This is a story about dignity, love, and becoming. About a little girl who said mommy and meant me. And the day a room full of relatives finally listened. Before that party, the jokes had a history. They started small, then learned to draw blood cleanly. "Cat lady in training," Karen sang across dessert plates. Relatives smiled like hostages. I stacked plates and breathed. Sunday dinners turned into obstacle courses disguised as pot roast. "Must be nice, all that free time," she purred. Mom changed topics. Dad oversalted potatoes like a metronome. I rinsed dishes until steam could hide my feelings. Online, the chorus grew louder, dressed as wholesome posts. "Grateful for my real family," she wrote, tagging me. Cousins lobbed laughing emojis that never sounded like laughter. Grandma asked if I'd married my career in cats. I kissed her cheek, talked lilies, swallowed something coppery. Mr. Whiskers squinted judgment. Luna needed the throw blanket. I hung shelves level, one deliberate breath at a time. Responsibility, I learned, doesn't need a stroller to count. The winter remodel became everyone's favorite traveling punchline. I studied grout lines like a language I could speak, chose appliances the way surgeons choose instruments. Quiet, careful. Karen toured the cabinets, called it practice, smirk almost permanent. "Maybe someday you'll host for a real family, Em." The words lodged behind my ribs, cold as January air. I ironed napkins anyway, laid forks like quiet soldiers. Mia squeezed my hand, whispering, "Breathe," over the kettle. I shelved comebacks and kept cooking for 12 anyway. It wasn't practice, it was dignity under good lighting. 2 years ago, the axis of my days tilted. I met James at a conference coffee station, exhausted. He spilled cream, apologized, and handed me too many napkins. We traded schedules, then stories, then the truth beneath both. He was a single dad. Sophie was almost 3. Her mother had relinquished rights and vanished into silence. His voice softened on Sophie's name, prayer without cathedral. Photos. Spaghetti-smeared grin. Wild curls feral with sunlight. "She's everything," he said, gravity landing without drama. Something inside me answered. Not surrender exactly. Readiness. Dating James meant learning clocks that kept different time. Noon coffees between preschool pickup and stand-ups became ritual. Dinners happened after stories, baths, and dishwasher sighs. He guarded Sophie's world like a winter lamp's thin glass. I respected tides. I respected bedtime. I respected boundaries. When he said, "I think you should meet," he planned. Bridges, not leaps. Patient, exact, and kind by design. We chose the Children's Museum. Curiosity melts ice faster. Sophie hid behind his jeans, eyes solemn and bright. I crouched low, waved, and let silence feel safe. "Show me your favorite thing?" I asked, voice steady. She led us to a wind tunnel, throwing scarves skyward. We chased floating color until the blue touched ceiling. At lunch, she declared, "I listen good, don't fix hair." James laughed, relief untying its tight occupational knot. We left holding hands without ceremony, sticky palm warm. Sleepover night, monsters visited, she called the new name. James was showering. I reached her first, matching breath. "Thanks, Mama Emma," she whispered into my sweater. Quiet lightning went through my chest and rebuilt a room. James appeared, hair wet, hope careful and brightening. "How do you feel?" he asked like a prayer. "Terrified," I said, "and completely in love, truthfully." We turned on every light and talked about forever. He explained papers. Her mother's rights were already relinquished. If Sophie wanted, and we married, adoption could follow. He didn't push. He laid the map on table. Our home learned our names one Tuesday at dusk. Pancakes Saturdays, library Tuesdays, crayons and rain in hallways. Cat diplomacy proceeded like treaties, and somehow the treaties held. Mr. Whiskers judged less. Luna chose Sophie's pillow forever. Drawings bloomed on the fridge. 3 people, 2 cats. Labels backward and proud. Daddy, Mama, me, whisks Luna. 8 months ago, we packed my apartment in laughter. Sophie wrapped measuring spoons like jewels. Wrote fragile carefully. It felt exactly, strangely, perfectly correct and true. Moving in wasn't fireworks. It was toothbrushes sharing a cup. My Dutch oven clinked beside his veteran cast iron. A hallway nightlight clicked on for small midnight feet. Calendars merged, their colors overlapping like spring Easter eggs. He fixed the squeaky hinge. I tamed our pantry. Sophie declared the guest room our playroom for everyone. We strung paper stars and counted them to sleep. Sometimes I folded tiny socks, listening to soft breathing. How quiet labor keeps the hinged roof of love steady. Outside, the jokes kept arriving with infuriating postal accuracy. Real motherhood is sacrifice, Karen posted, tagging me boldly. At dinner, she praised chaos. My calm was counterfeit. I kept choosing calm anyway, because Sophie noticed everything. Responsibility looked like thermometers, timers, and gentle do-overs. Sounded like use your words said 20 patient ways. Tasted like chicken soup, smelled like crayons and rain. One night, James asked if a ring felt right. Not yet, I said. Let Sophie feel steady first. He tucked patience back into his pocket like lint. We planned to tell my family with context and care. A dinner where listening could outrun everyone's favorite assumptions. Meet Sophie before naming her. Meet James before measuring him. Meanwhile, Karen's rhythm of digs never missed its beat. I didn't clap back. I strengthened the load-bearing beams. Not revenge. Steadiness. Then Ava's party appeared like opportunity. Karen's house glittered pink, crowns on chairs, wands and cups. Ava bounced in socks, sugar bright on both cheeks. I set the dollhouse down, careful, choosing calm over commentary. Karen clocked it and smiled like she'd already won. Practice furniture for a practice life, she murmured, sugary and sharp. Open Aunt Emma's, Mom urged, trying very hard for neutral. Ava gasped when the porch light clicked, tiny and perfect. The stairs work, she whispered, touching railings with frosting fingers. Family drifted closer. Karen swirled wine, queenly in the doorway. Victorian, she trilled, for pretend tea with pretend guests. Brett smirked, auditioning for trouble with very little effort. Choking hazards, he declared, pointing like a town crier. Karen sighed theatrically. Emma wouldn't know about kids anyway. A nervous chuckle rustled through paper plates and plastic forks. I tapped the safety label, kept my voice even. 5 and up, extra felt pads here, instructions inside. The playlist got louder, like volume could replace kindness. Karen posted herself beside the house like she owned it. Still playing house with your cats, she announced grandly. Now recruiting my daughter to join the fantasy. Laughter popped like balloons, fast, thin, then embarrassingly quiet. Mom sawed cake. Dad inspected his fork with devotion. My mouth tasted metallic, but my hands stayed steady. Let's focus on Ava, I said, gentle and clear. Her smile sharpened until it felt exactly like a paper cut. We're focusing on her future, she said, chin lifted. Not pretending at your life. Not today, not ever. Brett leaned in like a microphone on a talk show. Still single, right? Any prospects besides cat roommates? He pointed at fridge magnets captioned Domestic Goddess, Feline Edition. Brett, Mom warned, tired around the edges, voice low. He shrugged innocence on like his favorite cardigan. Karen refilled his cup, pleased with her co-conspirator. Children are hard, she said. Not returnable to Petco. Ava looked between us, forecasting weather without vocabulary. I knelt beside her. The carpet pressed my knees. This house is yours, I said, keeping my voice soft. I'll build it with you if your mom agrees. Ava nodded solemnly. Kids understand ceremony and jurisdiction. My phone hummed. A small lighthouse in my pocket. James. Sophie feels better. Want us to swing by? If she's good, come, it's time, I wrote back. A heart appeared. I breathed to 4, twice. Someone fought the Bluetooth. The playlist hiccuped mid-chorus. Karen leaned close. Perfume crowded the small living room. Don't sulk, she whispered. We tease because we love. You tease because you can, I said, still kind. And because no one stops you when it hurts. Her eyes flashed surprise, annoyance, then something uncertain. She switched to public voice, bright as polished cutlery. Ava, thank Aunt Emma for the practice furniture. Ava hugged my legs. Sincerity cleared the adult weather. She named the tiny dog Waffles, cradling plastic carefully. The front door opened. Time did a very strange thing. Afternoon light bent softly around 2 familiar silhouettes. James entered, carrying drowsy Sophie, ribbons slightly crooked. He kissed her forehead, scanned faces, anchored on me. Go to Mama, he said, voice a warm landing. Sophie blinked awake and lit like a small sunrise. Mommy! She squealed, arms reaching without hesitation. Silence congealed. heavy and exact across the room. I crossed to them, lifted Sophie, breathed her shampoo. Her fingers found my necklace by muscle memory. "Princess party?" she asked, eyeing the castle greedily. "If Ava says yes," I answered, letting ownership stand. Ava unfroze first and waved Sophie over immediately. Two girls, knees down, heads together, negotiations commenced. "Mom, Dad," I said, "this is James and Sophie." James offered his hand, posture open, tone anchored, sure. "Mrs. Chen, Mr. Chen, thanks for having us today. Emma talks about your lasagna. We try to imitate." Mom shook automatically. Manners steered her through shock. Dad nodded, squeezed. Relief flickered behind his glasses. Karen's jaw clicked and locked into a precise line. Brett rolled in like a news van late to fire. "Wait, you have a kid? Since when?" he blurted. "Did you, order one online?" he added. The room sharpened around the edges of his joke. James angled himself between Brett and the girls, instinctive. "Let's keep it respectful," he said, mild but final. "Nearly 2 years," I told Brett, plain as water. Karen found a voice, but not a generous version. "So this is why you've been busy and private. Dragging a child into fantasy on my daughter's birthday." Mark arrived, palms up, trying hard to de-escalate. "Car, come on," he murmured. "Let's reset and breathe." She shrugged him off like vinyl shrugs the rain. "I won't be made fool in my own house." James stayed steady, a bridge doing its only job. "We didn't plan surprise," Sophie woke asking for Mama. "We introduce when it feels right. Her comfort first." Sophie and Ava debated Waffles' bedroom with serious faces. Mom's eyes brimmed like bowls carried with careful wrists. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked, voice frayed. Dad cleared his throat, found a workable gear. "We'd have wanted to meet them sooner, honey." Old fear left my lungs like something overdue. "We needed surety," I said. Sophie needed slow. Privacy kept outside noise from crowding her small world. Karen laughed. A sound with corners, no cushioning. "Privacy," she echoed, ringing it like a warning bell. "Or secrecy for your dramatic entrance and applause." "I didn't make you anything," I said, staying calm. "Your jokes made me small in rooms I love." Mark's mouth opened, then closed. The playlist softened to strings. Dad rested a hand on James's shoulder, awkwardly kind. Mom noticed Sophie's ribbons and knelt, voice gentler. "I love your dress. Sunflowers are my favorite, too." Sophie introduced Elephant like visiting royalty, pleased. "Welcome," Mom told them, clearly meaning every syllable. Karen watched acceptance happen without her permission to control it. Pride pulled against grief across her carefully practiced expression. She set her glass down with a soft, final clink. "Would you have told me first?" she asked quietly. "Yes," I said, truth cut open cleanly, nothing hidden. "At dinner soon, with time and context for questions. I wanted to protect Sophie from becoming a spectacle, and protect us from becoming your online content." Her mouth twitched. The hit landed where it belonged. "They were jokes," she whispered, parachute line already fraying. "They were public," I said. "They taught people to belittle. They taught me to lock doors you used to open." Sophie tugged my sleeve. Waffles apparently needed water. James crouched and treated the problem with comic gravity. Ava appointed him royal carpenter of balconies and stairs. He accepted a tiny plastic hammer with solemn dignity. Laughter rippled warmer, less like glass breaking under feet. Mark's shoulders dropped. Brett fetched napkins without commentary. Karen's laugh arrived late, brittle first, then softened. "Okay," she said finally, tasting a different road. "Okay, but not on my daughter's birthday," she added. "I can't absorb new family between cupcakes," she admitted. "You don't have to," I said, gentler than before. "Today is hello. Questions can live on another night." She nodded, a motion that obviously cost real energy. Her eyes found Sophie, then James, and finally me. The room expanded like lungs returning from long apnea. Conversation resumed, careful, then gradually less careful. Dad asked about parks near our street in Queens. Mom debated sprinkles versus chips with Sophie, delighted. Brett surrendered his spotlight and took the trash out. Ava installed Waffles downstairs with ceremony and authority. Karen touched the roof, thinking, then made a ruling. "Waffles sleeps downstairs," she said. "Thunder scares small dogs." Ava nodded. Sophie saluted. The committee resumed building. I felt my ribs loosen. Space returned in my chest. Karen met my eyes and didn't immediately look away. "I was cruel," she said. "I don't know why." "Later," I said, "when it isn't Ava's day. We'll have the long talk and I will listen. Today, let's just start with not being cruel." Gratitude flickered, brief, unguarded, across her tired face. She set a paper crown on Sophie's bowed head. "Princess guest," she said. Sophie checked it, then grinned. The kitchen filled. Mom lit candles with steadier hands. "Make a wish," we chorused. practicing tenderness in unison. Ava blew. Cheers rose, uncomplicated and honest. James slipped his arm around my waist, a steady anchor. Okay? He murmured. Okay, I answered, meaning it. We cut cake, we passed plates, we exhaled. Karen stacked crowns into a tidy, colorful monument. Back in the living room, the castle begged wiring. Engineer, Ava decreed, handing James the instruction sheet. He knelt, inspected, and gave Sophie the tiny screwdriver. Teamwork, he announced. They formed a very serious committee. Aunt Lena hovered, palms dusted with sugar, curious. Different happy, she said. You look different, Emma. We're building slow, I answered. Slow holds through weather. She nodded and kindly chose not to pry. Mom hovered, offering ribbon rewinds and candle technique. Dad swapped bus route tips like friendly currency. I watched threads cross and braid without forcing anything. The braid wasn't neat yet, but it was strong. Karen returned carrying grapes and pretzels like a treaty. She placed them down between kingdoms. Practical peace offering. I stood inside it all, feeling tectonic plates shift. Old geography redrew borders without fireworks or sirens. We weren't finished, but conversation had finally begun. Ava saved our gift for last by solemn decree. She patted the porch, named it Princess Annex proudly. Karen announced a ribbon cutting. Mark found actual ribbon. Brett wielded plastic spoons like ceremonial scissors, chastened. We counted down, voices braided, imperfect but earnest. Ava cut. Bubbles sputtered. Elephant approved with dignity. Mom dabbed her eyes, blaming imaginary bubble residue. Dad took a photo he promised not to overshare. Karen glanced at James's inner pocket, then away. Whenever that happens, she said. Plan it with me. Not like today, she added, glancing at Sophie, careful. Yes, I said, because bridges deserve blueprints and care. The afternoon thinned into honeyed light along the street. Goodbyes clustered. Promises were spoken, some to be kept. Mom hugged James. Dad told Sophie about hardware candy jars. Brett carried trash again, a quieter night of garbage. Karen hugged me awkwardly, then less awkwardly, then real. Tea later, she said. I'll listen, I promised. We loaded the car, the sky settled like silk. Sophie buckled Elephant Safety Officer with grave concentration. James closed the trunk and paused beside my door. He reached into his jacket. Velvet brushed his fingers. I stopped him gently. Not a stage. Choose quiet. He smiled, understanding shaped deep in muscle and bone. From the porch, Karen watched, arms crossed, posture softer. Ava waved Waffles goodnight from the annex steps. Mom and Dad stood together inside the doorway light. We pulled away. My heart found a calmer rhythm. Conflict hadn't vanished. Its edges had finally softened. The night held room for whatever needed beginning next. 1 week later, Sunday dinner filled my parents' house. Roast chicken, jasmine rice, bowls of greens and oranges. Aunt Lena arrived with pies. Brett arrived with opinions. Karen came last, shoulders squared like a marching band. James squeezed my hand. Sophie carried elephant and crayons. Mom lit the good candles, the ones for holidays. Dad turned off the game and told everyone sit. The table glowed like a small stage without curtains. I stood first, heart steady from too much practice. Thank you for coming, I said, voice clear, even. I have updates and I have boundaries, both necessary. Karen exhaled loudly. Brett grinned like a studio audience. James nodded once, then set a folder beside plates. Sophie whispered, Is it the special dinner, Mama? It is, I said, and she beamed at me. I've been called a pretend adult for years now, I began, choosing every word like a rung. I didn't defend myself because privacy kept Sophie safe. Tonight, privacy becomes family, and family requires respect. I opened the folder. Paper whispered like careful thunder. First, screenshots of Karen's posts I had quietly saved. Captions circled, real family, cat lady epidemic, laughing emojis. Jokes, Karen said, small, already knowing what came next. They taught strangers to belittle me, I answered, still calm. They taught me to lock doors you used to open. I slid the pages back, then brought out the letters. A notarized statement, our lawyer's note, the adoption roadmap. Her mother relinquished rights, James said, voice steady, respectful. When we marry, Emma will adopt Sophie if Sophie wants. Sophie nodded hard enough to rattle her bows. I want, she said, serious, small, certain, unafraid. Karen stared at the letterhead like it might blink. Mom pressed her fingers together, tears shining without falling. Dad cleared his throat, found words lined up properly. We're honored to witness this, he said, voice rough. And to help however you need us to. Brett looked at the papers, then at my face. Okay, he muttered, deflating. That's not content. That's real. I placed one last envelope at Karen's place. Inside, a single photo of the dollhouse porch. A ribbon, 2 crowns, 2 girls bent in concentration. On the back, practice is how any of us become real. Karen turned it over, thumb trembling like an apology. I was cruel, she whispered, louder than shouting somehow. I thought I was protecting you from a smaller life. I was protecting my story about what counted. She drew a breath that wobbled but didn't break. I deleted the posts, she added, almost to herself. I started therapy Tuesday. I'm trying to change. The room held it, a cup catching a spill. James looked at me. The air gathered itself. He stood, then dropped to one knee beside Sophie. He opened the velvet box the world kept guessing. Light found the ring and stayed there, unembarrassed. Emma, he said, you made our home feel inevitable. You choose Sophie every day, and you choose me. We choose you back. Will you marry us? Sophie pressed Elephant to my arm like a seal. Say yes, Mama, she breathed, eyes huge, hopeful. The table blurred. My yes arrived before my breath. Yes, I said, then laughed, then said it again. James slid the ring on. My hands finally shook. Applause broke like summer rain against a hot sidewalk. Mom cried outright. Dad made the world's softest whoop. Aunt Lena clapped like castanets. Brett actually fist-pumped. Even Karen smiled, helpless and human in the light. Then I raised a hand because happiness also needs rules. I'm grateful, I said. But we're not finished yet. Love without boundaries turns into spectacle very quickly. Boundary 1. No more public jokes about my worth. Boundary 2. If Sophie is present, respect leads every sentence. Boundary 3. If you slip, you apologize like grown-ups. Boundary 4. Participation is voluntary. Access is earned. Silence held. Then Mom nodded first, the way mothers do. Agreed, she said, voice steady like a held hymn. Dad tapped the table twice, our family's old yes. Lena lifted a fork and said, to new rules. Brett swallowed pride and added, and to not being dumb. Mark took Karen's hand. She didn't pull away. Karen turned to me, face stripped of theater. I agree, she said, plain as rain. All 4. And if I forget, remind me once then twice. After that I will leave and try again later. It was the bravest thing I'd ever heard her say. Sophie tugged my sleeve, business not quite concluded. Can I tell them my rule? She asked carefully. Always, I said, kneeling so we were eye level. No yelling, she said, when I am in the room. And no making Mama small, not even a little. We all looked at James. He saluted very seriously. Adopted, he said. As policy. Effective immediately. Unanimous. Karen stood, rounded the table, stopped beside my chair. She took a breath and hugged me like a bridge. Congratulations, she said on purpose, close enough to hear fear. I'm happy for you, and I am sorry. Thank you, I said, feeling a hinge unclench quietly. Then I turned, because the story needed a finish. I lifted my glass. The room lifted theirs with me. I was never playing house, I said, clear, steady. I was building one. Keys, rules, love, and a payroll. You're welcome inside if you wipe your feet. And if you can't, you don't come in. The sentence landed like truth finally sitting down. The candles flickered, then agreed by burning steadier. Somewhere a timer dinged. Life remembered to continue. Mom served pie. Dad poured tea like a ceremony. James kissed my temple. Sophie fed Elephant pretend crumbs. Karen passed plates, and this time didn't narrate mine. Outside, early evening hung laundry on the neighborhood trees. Inside, our yes kept echoing, but more quietly now. The kind of echo you can live with every day. 6 months later, mornings found a steadier rhythm at home. Coffee and toast. Crayons on placemats. Sneakers drying by vents. Sophie lined stuffed animals by height and called roll. James packed lunches with notes and crooked little hearts. I checked calendars. Colors overlapped like quiet Easter eggs. Ordinary days arrived, and we kept choosing them. We married in my parents' backyard on a Saturday. String lights hummed. Peonies bowed. The grill clicked patiently. Sophie wore ribbons, both flower girl and ring bearer, carrying rings in a small wicker basket like treasure. When music started, she walked like someone on mission. Elephant rode shotgun, wordless and fully on task. Dad cried once, then blamed a wandering breeze. Mom fixed my veil with hands gentler than before. Karen arranged chairs, counted forks, and checked herself, too. During toasts, she stood, paper trembling, voice unexpectedly brave. I mistook noise for love, control for care, jokes for closeness. I'm sorry, she said. I'm learning different. Our lawyer filed adoption papers the following Tuesday. The clerk stamped dates. Pages felt heavier, kinder. Sophie practiced her new signature on scrap envelopes. Middle name Emma, she decided, planets aligned in ink. She wrote it backward once, then laughed without shame. Best present, she said, battery-free and forever. At school, she started a mixed-up families lunch club. Kids compared charts, step bonus, foster, chosen, found. They drew houses with extra doors and shared keys. Her teacher wrote, "She's matter-of-fact and kind." Boundaries held at Sunday dinners like sturdy handrails. We hung "no snark" above the coat rack. Advice needed invitation. Questions started with, "May I ask?" Mom adopted the rules first and felt real relief. Beginning therapy Tuesdays, the slot after Karen's. Dad practiced 3 phrases until they sounded natural. "I don't know. I was wrong. I'm proud." When Sophie lost a tooth, he built a fairy door. Authorized personnel, night shift only, in tiny print. Brett apologized without microphones or punchlines. He carried chairs and cropped himself from photos. Online, Karen scrubbed captions and archived the performance era, posting quieter pictures and asking permission first. Ava and Sophie ran the dollhouse like a city. Snack permits, balcony rules, waffles downstairs during thunder. We wired tiny lights, then dimmed the real ones. Glow nested inside glow, a smaller home inside home. There were stumbles, not punishments, when lines frayed. A joke slipped at a barbecue one night. Karen caught it, rewound, and tried the sentence again. Sophie tapped her wrist, our signal for repair. Karen kneeled, apologized, and asked what would feel right. "Sprinkles," Sophie said, and that was enough. Some evenings I remembered the day the room shifted. How truth waited until I had hands to hold it. Not spectacle, not leverage. Commitment carried in daylight. Privacy was a seed. Later it grew into shade. Fewer voices meant space. I could finally hear myself. James and I kept building a life to scale. Strong hinges, slow cabinets, labels we could live with. He brought patience. I brought lists. Sophie brought confetti. We penciled "baby someday," never as a remedy. Home already breathed plural, complete enough to exhale. The adoption hearing arrived on a clear, cold morning. Courtrooms smell like paper, polish, caffeine, and nerves. The judge asked Sophie the simple, important question gently. "Do you want Emma to be your mother?" She stood on tiptoes and said, "She already is." My knees wobbled. James steadied the entire sky. We celebrated with pancakes and syrup maps of countries. Elephant got a passport and a sleepover visa. We framed the decree, smaller than the feelings it proved. Family chat renamed itself Keys, Shoes, Snacks, Feelings. Pinned rules. Ask permission. Apologize promptly. Screenshot nothing. Assume care. Grandma added hearts and far too many teacups. She called Sophie great-grand. Forgot the hyphen again. We let it stay. Love rarely needs punctuation. Quiet surprises kept arriving, the kind only homes notice. Mom invited Mia to Sunday supper without prompting. Dad asked James about a stubborn drawer that stuck. Mark taught Sophie chain grease and tire pressure checks. Ava declared cousin sleepovers a constitutional childhood right. Karen listens now in ways I used to dream. She still marches and counts, but texts before spiraling. We brew tea and practice sentences like careful drivers. We loop back, signal, yield, then merge again. I'm not the woman they joked about at birthdays. I'm the one who built a kitchen and boundaries. Who knows unbounded love turns into weather, not shelter. Who learned privacy grows truth, not secrets, when tended. And that forgiveness is maintenance, done regularly, on purpose. Happiness fit before and after. Both chapters belong. Sometimes I stand in Sophie's doorway at night. The nightlight hums. Paper stars keep patient company. She sleeps with one hand open, palm relaxed upward. I think about thresholds and who earns knocking rights. How daylight stayed once we finally let it in. How quiet joy hums and somehow still thunders. On the fridge, her drawing names us simply and exactly. Daddy, Mama, me, Whisks, Luna, Elephant, House, Heart, Stars. She added Karen, Mark, Ava, Grandma, Grandpa, Aunt Lena. Above the door, she taped our rule like a banner. No making people small, it says. Not even a little. When I pass the dollhouse, I touch its tiny porch. And remember Karen's living room and that electric word. The hush, the turning, the faces finally leaning in. Choosing calm and being chosen back, steady as tide. I flip the miniature lights on, then turn to dinner. Home glows, the table waits, we know where to sit. Thank you for spending this time with me. If you've ever been minimized by family or told, your life wasn't real, what helped you reclaim your voice? And what would you tell your younger self today? Share your story in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. If this resonated, please like the video, subscribe for more real family stories, and consider sharing it with someone who needs a gentle reminder. You are enough.